Euphoria just wrapped its second season, and I honestly don't know how to articulate how I feel about this show because there's so much that happens this season I don't think I can explain in 1 minute, so rapid fire, here I go. Holy shit, Zendaya can act. Jules is clingy. Maddie is a badass and I really like her more this season. Cassie got on my damn nerves this season. Kat pretty much got sidelined this season. Lexi is my spirit animal, especially after her play. Fesco and his family are motherfucking G's. Coleman Domingo as Ali is the magical Negro we all need. Gia needs a hug. Both Nate and Cal are Satan. This scene was hilarious. Episode 5 was one of the best directed episodes of any show. How in the world did they throw out an entire suitcase full of drugs? Just when I thought I couldn't care less for this character, she does this and totally redeems herself. This season was easily better than the first because I felt Sam Livingston really found his stride with the show from a writing and visual standpoint. Euphoria Season 2 gets the hands up emoji because it is a masterpiece. The Batman is one of the most anticipated films of the year because it's the start of another contained Batman series that is not connected to anything like Joker, which came out 2 years ago. There's a lot riding on the shoulders of Robert Pattinson as Batman, and is directed by Matt Reeves, who directed Cloverfield and the last two Planet of the Apes films. I am here to report that it did not disappoint. Sparkle Boy did his thing as Batman, but mostly as Batman because we didn't get enough of him as Bruce Wayne. I love the thriller aspect of it being a murder mystery. We finally see more of the detective side of Batman. He is the greatest detective after all. Zoe Kravitz, in my opinion, surpasses Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman/Selena Kyle. Colin Farrell is unrecognizable as the Penguin. This is the best I've seen of the dynamic between Batman and Jim Gordon, but the biggest standout to me was Paul Dano as the Riddler. All due respect to Jim Carrey, but they finally put some respect on the Riddler's name. The film gave me exactly what I thought I was gonna get.
And you didn't disappoint.
Outside of not enough Bruce Wayne, and he was one note throughout the movie, you do feel the runtime. Still, though, I cannot wait to watch this film again on HBO Max in less than 45 days. I can't wait to see what Matt Reeves does with this incarnation of the Batman universe. The Batman gets the hard eyes emoji. Kanye West released a 3-part documentary called Genius, and it's about his life from the perspective of Cootie, who has been filming the rapper producer's life for the past 20 years. We see the early years of Kanye making his debut album, The College Dropout, his relationship with his mother before she passed in 2007, the aftermath of it, and his life from that point in time until now. Now, I am a huge Kanye fan. I have loved most of his albums. They have been the soundtrack of my life from when I was a teenager, my college years, and even some of my adult life. I own 3 of his albums on vinyl. I have a whole playlist dedicated to Kanye, but I will say he's at the top of the list of celebrities that have to separate the art from the artist. After watching this documentary, hopefully you will have a better understanding of Kanye West, because it's definitely clear he has not been right ever since his mother passed, because she was unconditionally supportive. And shout out to Cootie because, again, he filmed 20 years of Kanye West's life and never once judged him. I was really inspired by this documentary. It's on Netflix. I highly recommend you watch it, especially if you're a Kanye fan or was a Kanye fan at any point. I'm gonna give Genius the hands up emoji. My cousin Vinny is celebrating 30 years and I wanted to revisit it because this film has a special place in my heart for a number of reasons. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time. It was one of my late father's favorite films of all time. I remember when he showed me this film when I was younger, and I always loved watching it ever since. Not only this is a hilarious film, but it's also one of the best courtroom procedurals of all time that perfectly highlights the courtroom procedural. 2 boys are falsely blamed for a murder, so one of them calls their inexperienced cousin Vinny to be their lawyer. Now, I really mean it when I say this was a hilarious film because we see characters out of their element in Alabama have to navigate through the locals and the environment they're in. This was one of Joe Pesci's most memorable performances. This was probably Ralph Macchio's other known performances outside of The Karate Kid. Some other notable performances from Fred Gwynne, Lane Smith, rest in peace to both of them. Of course, the real standout was Marissa Tomei, who won an Oscar for this film, and this really was a show-stopping performance for her. It's always fun revisiting this film because of how funny and clever it is, and I'm gonna give my cousin Vinny the hands up emoji because it is a masterpiece. White Man Can Jump is celebrating 30 years, and it is a classic that surprisingly gets better and better with time for me, not just because of the performances from our 2 leads, Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson, but because this is a sports film about streetball hustlers that are opposite people. Cindy Dean being the one that's just trying to make some money to give his family a good life, while Billy Hoyle is trying to pay off some debts, but really has a gambling problem, which is a detriment to him as a person and his relationship to Gloria, played by Rosie Perez. I've always liked this film, but I find myself getting something new from it every time I watch it. But then again, this is the first time I'm watching it with adult eyes. The metaphors given by some of the characters, by notably Sydney and Gloria, stick with me. It has some good commentary on cultural differences, while also still being a good sports film. Another thing I realized while watching this film is how toxic the relationship between Billy and Gloria is, which leads to the ending that for a long time I didn't quite understand, but now I do. I'm gonna give White Man Can't Jump the hard eyes emoji. Turning Red is the latest Disney and Pixar film that got dumped on Disney Plus over the weekend. I don't know why Disney pulled this from the theater. I mean, I know why, but this film I think could have done well, but I can see Disney not figuring out how to market this film because after you see it, you will see that this is a mature film even for Disney and Pixar standards, which at times is expected from Pixar specifically, but lately Disney and Pixar have been working together to make more mature films that are subtle with its messages, which I can get behind, and its core messages deal with puberty and family trauma. It might be redundant to say how great the animation is, but damn it, Pixar is great at what they do and they just get better and better. The voice cast did a remarkable job, and this is just an all-around fun movie that everybody can enjoy. I highly recommend you watch it. It's on Disney+. I'm gonna give Turning Red the heart eyes emoji. Pam and Tommy just rapped, and I dug this show for how they excellently illustrated this story because, like Impeachment, this was pretty much an American crime story where I'd say you go back and forth on whose side you're on. On one hand, you feel for Seth Rogen's character being wronged by Tommy Lee, so you want to see entitled rich people get brought down a peg. But on the other hand, you also feel sorry for Pam and Tommy, but really just Pamela Anderson, because at the end of the day, not only you broke into someone's home, but it is also invasion of privacy. This was kind of a history lesson for me because I knew next to nothing about this story, and as far as celebrity sex tapes go, this was the original. Seth Rogen fits perfectly as his character, but of course the standouts were Lily James and Sebastian Stan. They both transformed into these characters, and I say this is Sebastian Stan's best performance outside of Bucky. My only negative about this show is the show kind of drags in the middle, and if they had just cut it down from 8 episodes, it would be even better. I'm gonna give Pam and Tommy the thumbs up emoji. It's been 20 years since Panic Room came out, and I wanted to revisit it because it is a favorite of mine and underrated, if I must say. Not only this was a simple premise about a home invasion, but director David Fincher lends his directorial talents to make this film rise above any other home invasion film. Jodie Foster and a young Kristen Stewart are excellent at playing a mother and daughter that are stuck in this situation and have to survive. The three burglars played by Forrest Whitaker, Jared Leto, and Dwight Yoakam are not only good, but they have their own distinctive personalities and motives for why they are breaking into the house. It was a joy to watch them try to get into the panic room and get outsmarted by Foster and Stewart's characters. The standout to me was Jared Leto because when I was younger, Jared Leto wasn't the Jared Leto we know today, and watching him play a desperate, energetic burglar was fun and hilarious. It also personally made my heart sing that Forrest Whitaker's character was the smartest out of the three, and Dwight Yoakam was such a loose cannon, it was scary at times. And he's a country singer in real life. I give Panic Room the heart eyes emoji. All About the Benjamins came out 20 years ago, and I had never seen it, which might be sacrilegious for me personally. I don't know why this film fell under my radar for so long, but I had finally seen it, and it is just a prequel to another Ice Cube film that came out 12 years after this film. Right along. At least if you look at it like that. Given that this wasn't the first time Ice Cube and Mike Epps worked together, they were both great together and individually. Mike Epps does carry this film comedy-wise, and now I'm wondering, are Ice Cube and Mike Epps funny when they are opposing each other or when they are not, i.e. the Friday sequels? Eva Mendes was good in the movie. In fact, where has Eva Mendes been? Because the last time I saw her was in The Place Beyond the Pines back in 2012, and she dated and had kids with Ryan Gosling. I think we are due for an Eva Mendes renaissance. I also like to point out that award-winning actor Oscar Isaacs is in this, which was a huge surprise for me. He came from such humble beginnings. Anyways, I'm gonna give All About the Benjamins the thumbs up emoji. Death to Smoochie came out 20 years ago, and it is an underrated gem in my opinion because it is a dark comedy about the dark side of children's television. I remember I used to watch this on HBO and Cinemax back in the day when I was younger, and I didn't know what to make of it then. I just know the more I watched it, the more I enjoyed and found myself laughing my ass off, particularly at Robin Williams because it was hilarious watching him rant and go off as Rainbow Randolph. Anything that makes me love, appreciate, and miss Robin Williams more is a win to me. At the time when I saw this movie, I did not know who Edward Norton was because I had not seen Fight Club or American History X. But this was a different side of him that I don't think anybody had seen, or at least I haven't seen. Danny DeVito isn't a stranger to directing movies, but I think he did a fantastic job with this film. I'm gonna give Death to Smoochie the heart eyes emoji. Deepwater was released on Hulu over the weekend, and this film caught my eye because of the two leads, Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas. Ironically, the two dated for a brief period, and you can see their real-life chemistry on screen here, which adds to the uneasy nature of this film. I can add this film to the list of films to not watch with your significant other, like Malcolm and Mary, Gone Girl, and Marriage Story. I like that Ben Affleck is continuing to have a steady career after Batman. I admittedly couldn't stop simping over Ana de Armas every time she popped up on the screen. I'd say both actors did an excellent job at making you not know which side you want to be on because both do despicable things to one another. However, the script is kind of all over the place because it takes some turns that don't make sense. You're either going to enjoy this film or you are just not going to roll with this film. So I'm going to give Deepwater the thumbs up emoji. If you've been following me on YouTube for a long time, you know that I am a huge fan of the sitcom How I Met Your Mother. So when the spinoff How I Met Your Father that has been in development hell for some years finally came to fruition, I was skeptical because this is another case of taking a once popular TV show that has been off the air long enough for people to start to get nostalgic over it to make a revival and spinoff. And now that this spinoff wrapped its first season, I'm here to report that it was actually pretty decent. This show managed to be its own thing while still honoring and respecting what had came before it, and it wasn't even a nostalgia fest. The only references to the original show was the interior callbacks, cameos from side characters, and a surprise guest appearance from an original character, which I will not spoil, but you know who I'm talking about if you've seen it. The new cast led by Hilary Duff works because they were all not friends at first, but as the show went on, they developed a rapport with each other. It also helps that this show does illustrate the current dating landscape just right, which makes the show feel fresh. I'm gonna give How I Met Your Father the thumbs up emoji. The Lorax is celebrating its 10th anniversary, and I wanted to revisit it because for a long time I thought it was the best Dr. Seuss adaptation, and it still is compared to the others with the exception of Horton Hears a Who. That said, there are elements of this movie that don't hold up quite as well. While the movie's heart is in the right place, with its messages and themes of the environment and capitalism, there were times where it wasn't subtle. And because this is a Dr. Seuss adaptation, they unnecessarily stretch it out. Still, the animation is stellar, given that this is Illumination when there were only 2 movies deep, and some of the voice cast, particularly Danny DeVito as the title character, is perfect. Some of the other voice cast consist of Zac Efron, Taylor Swift, Jenny Slate, the late Betty White, rest in peace, Rob Riggle. Despite the fact that they hit you over the head with the messages and themes, I'm still going to give The Lorax the thumbs up emoji. It's been 10 years since Project X came out, and the general consensus of this film has sort of diminished over the years. When it came out, there was 2 types of people that approached this film. You either had to be a teenager or in your early 20s, like I was when this movie came out, in order to really appreciate this film, or it was a nightmare if you're an adult, let alone a parent. On one hand, this is a hilarious film once the actual party gets going, but you also are annoyed by some of the characters, particularly the Costa character, played by Oliver Cooper. I remember being fascinated by the found footage nature of this film, which to me made the film feel fresh to me, and especially how they got footage from everybody that was in the party. But at the same time, the polarizing nature of the film kind of doesn't hold up or just doesn't sit well with me at times. But still, I enjoy this film, but it does have some problematic elements, so I'll give Project X the shoulder shrug emoji. 21 Jump Street is celebrating 10 years, and it's crazy because at the time when this came out, I was over buddy cop films thanks to the movie Cop Out. But then I saw this film and I was blown away by how it subverted my expectations. This was a hilarious meta take on not just an old TV show from the 80s, but buddy cop films in general, going after the genre's tropes, stereotypes, and the current state of Hollywood at the time. Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum were a comedic match made in heaven. I remember when this came out, this was the film that kicked off the Channing Tatum renaissance at a time when everybody was like, Hollywood, stop trying to make Channing Tatum happen. He's not going to happen. This was also the film where the directors Phil Lord and Chris Miller really started to make names for themselves. And little did we know, they had more to give. I'm gonna give 21 Jump Street the hard eyes emoji. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 is the beginning of the end of the Harry Potter saga. I remember when this came out, I was excited because it's the beginning of the epic finale. I only have 2 issues with this film, and it's splitting the last book into 2 movies was a blessing and a curse, because everybody started taking that final book or movie and splitting it into 2 movies. And while this film can work on its own, my enjoyment of Part 1 depends on watching Part 2 afterwards. That said, I like how Part 1 is a different kind of Harry Potter film, right down to not going to Hogwarts at all in the film. We get more character moments with the original 3, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and we really see how this war is affecting them. Part 1 was the setup for the big finale that we get in Part 2, and I'm gonna give Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 the hard eyes emoji. Concluding my Harry Potter marathon with the Deathly Hallows Part 2, which is my favorite in the series because of how it took 10 years worth of movies and ended it on a good note, on a great note, on a meaningful, emotional note. This was the endgame before Endgame came out. This film had almost every character from all the movies, and you cared about every single one of them for this big finale. It tied the saga up so beautifully. They did a complete 180 for a character in one scene and made it believable and changed your perspective of the entire series. Rest in peace to Alan Rickman. And I just love how this film is paced, and by the end of it, you leave on a satisfying note. I'm gonna give Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 the hands up emoji because it is a masterpiece. It has been 10 years since the first Hunger Game was released, and I wanted to revisit it because I remember when this came out, the Harry Potter series had ended, Twilight was getting ready to end, and the Hunger Games was next in line of young adult novels adapted to screen. This film is Battle Royale, but it's still an enjoyable film, but it does have its give and take. This film does a good job at setting up the world and its characters, played by then rising star Jennifer Lawrence, supported by Josh Hutcherson, nobody's favorite Hemsworth brother. We also get some good performances from some respected older actors like a drunken Woody Harrelson, Elizabeth Banks, hamming it up under all that makeup and costumes, a comforting performance by Lenny Kravitz, Stanley Tucci in a movie is never a bad thing, and Donald Sutherland makes you hate President Snow. This film is not only about the games, but it's also about classism and capitalist economies. That said, Gary Ross's shaky cam direction in the film was a detriment to the film at times, but I'm still going to give the Hunger Games the thumbs up emoji.